everyone. And I remember the Father saying to me, he says, we are all sacred beings. And in that sacredness, we have an obligation to each to whom we are connected.
Tell me something, how many times, if you're aware of, how many times your soul has been here
My soul,
on earth?
I do not know, but I know I am a very old soul. I came before Christ also. I incarnated before Christ also. And I can firmly say that I also was incarnated when he walked the earth. I walked with him. And many who are on the earth at this time have walked with him. They have come to support the movement, the transition of the earth plane. We are in what is called the correcting times. You know, they talk about the second coming. Well, first and foremost, it's about the resurrection of the Christ within each of us, because we all have a Christ self. Christ is not a title, it's a state of being. And we have to become Christ conscious by not just saying, oh, I believe in God, or I recognize the Christ. That is insufficient. You have to feel the presence of God within you. You have to take on the mantle of Christ. You have to become one with the will of God. And when you feel that sense of oneness, you will gravitate to the will of God. In other words, you will become transformed inside out, because man is spirit turned inside out. And you will say, Father, it is my will to do your will. The Father's will becomes the blueprint of every project, the foundation of every task. There is no sacrifice, because the entire envelope of your entire human envelope, that is the energetic envelope, goes through a polarity shift, and you become risen. You feel as if there's something within you that has risen. You feel the presence of God, and you have to feel the presence of God not just on Sundays or whatever day you worship, but every single moment of your life.
What do you say to naysayers when you talk about reincarnation and they, people just say, oh, that's just rubbish,
Greatness is the ability to hear new information, not with mind to disprove or disbelief, but to see how it can be right, correct. You have to experience it. And if you wish to experience it, you would. And the Father said to me, he said, I alone am, meaning I am all that exists.
I alone
am. And he says, what I am, you are. Man will know me when he desires to know me. And there's a difference between knowing of God. You could read many things about God in many religious texts, in many books, philosophical books. You won't know God until you experience the Father's presence within you. Okay? Contrary to what a lot of people teach, God came to establish a kingdom Christ came to establish a kingdom based on progressive revelations. The Father has said, if truth becomes crystallized in creeds, it becomes preservative and fossilized. They must be used as signposts for spiritual guidance. You have to, it's a beautiful experiment. You have to search for God and search for truth. And it is in that quest that you will face the perils of intellectual discovery, that which will actually blow all your former beliefs off. And that's what happened to me.
Yes.
I was conditioned in religion. I was indoctrinated in the ways of the Bible. I was a Christian. And there were many things when I began to awaken that I would say, no, I'm not going to believe that. But then when I began to have all these metaphysical experiences, I had to believe. So it's only through experience that you believe. We are sovereign beings, because by the mere fact that God is within us, don't be calling the King of Kings and the God of God. So if he's the King of Kings and we are divine sons and daughters of God, does that not make us sovereign also? Why are we afraid to claim our sovereignty? That is our birthright, our entitlement. Why? I'll tell you why. Because with it comes responsibility. We have to assume total and absolute responsibility for self, which means assuming responsibility for our thoughts, our actions, our words, our projections, creations? How many people are ready to move out of victim consciousness and embrace their sovereignty?
You know, I'm listening to you and it's just amazing because the idea of claiming our birthright now, time is now.
The time is now.
And for what's happening on the earth now, as we spoke before about the time being, we're coming out of Capricorn now.
The age of Aquarius is the golden age.
Right, and going into what would the golden age mean?
Well,
for
just be a time of enlightenment, I would say. Okay, the earth is in confusion now. We just have to look around and see what's going on. So it is called the age of Kali. But Kali must come to an end. But all that has been built on false doctrines, all that has been built on, false creeds, all that has been built on greed and avarice, and everything of a sensual nature must fall apart. You say things fall apart, the center can't hold. Is that not what is happening? But things must fall apart before the earth will rise again. It's like the phoenix from the ashes.
And it's the time for us to claim our birthright.
Yes, because we're at the time of the earth's ascension. That's why so many people are actually awakening to their divinity and they're exploring spirituality. But people have a misconception about spirituality. What is spirituality? It doesn't mean connecting with spirits who are past. That might just be one aspect of it. But spirituality is a personal religious experience. It is the progressive awakening, and note I use the word progressive awakening, to the inner reality of your being, your inner self, the divine presence that you truly are.
And you find that many people now are having that enlightenment.
Many people are shifting. It is the seeking after God and the opening to the deepest life of your soul to the indwelling presence of the Father. Do you hear? That is where the presence is within you. And man, precisely, and man has to appreciate that and work towards clearing the network, the communication, lines of communication within, so that there can be a deeper communication. This morning I was contemplating with the Father, and he said to me, he said, well, the question of how can I cultivate a relationship with God? Okay, you're talking about meditation, you're talking about the techniques, you're saying that there may be blockages that needs to be cleared. He says, think of yourself as an apprentice. He says, when you go to learn a trade, don't you have to be an apprentice to someone who knows it, who's a master at it? And then you begin to be skilled like that person, and you begin to reflect that person and do what that person can do. Well, he says, my will is for you to become God and manifest. To manifest me through your earthly life. That's what he said to me. He said, that's my will. And he says, but how will you know who I am and what I really am and what I expect if you don't spend time with me? Why don't you come and be my apprentice? Apprentice yourself to me and I will teach you. He said to me, he says, let me be the captain of your ship. I will stand at the helm and I will hold your hands on the wheel and I will plot the coordinates, your course in other words. And I will help you to navigate through, waters when they're not ambient. I will teach you what I know, so then you become who I am. And I found that was so beautiful, and every day I say, Father, be the captain of my ship. Why would I want to learn from anyone else but the Master? We can have conversations with the God within us. We are not separate from the Father. This is our right. Why do we limit the ways in which God can communicate with us?
The language of light.
Yes, God's language is the language of light, and light is the language of inspiration. Every time you have an inspired thought, a concept, an idea comes to you, that is God speaking to you. You should jump for joy and say, wow, God has just spoken to me. I had a metaphysical experience where I was doing automatic writing, and where it's inspired, and all of a sudden, mighty God is present. Well, I wasn't shocked because this was at the beginning of my big awakening. And he says, do you think that I am up there? He said, I am anywhere you want me to be, but I am more effective for you from within. He said to me that you are my body. All of you make up the body of God in Christ. And he said, the church, isn't the church the body of Christ? And I'm telling you, each of you are within the body. Isn't the church one foundation? There is only one body. There is only one God. And there is no part of God's body that is more superior to the other part. None is chosen above the other. All are equal. And he channeled through this, he says, the church is one foundation in wholeness and accord. There is no separation, for each is part of God. His body can't be broken, yet all in him is free. United through the God-mind, his church shall ever be. We are God's church. We are the body of God. There is only one body. We are not separate. Separation is an illusion. How do you experience this oneness? When you feel one with God, there is no void. There is no space to fill. You feel whole. You feel complete. You experience yourself as pure love. You don't have to go outside and look for love in different places. Your prime motivation is to share that love. Your heart center becomes open. You begin to radiate love wherever you go. You become transformed. You will walk down the road or you're in the bus and you will see someone who you don't even know in this incarnation. They're a stranger, yet you can look at them and say, wow, that person has an identical God presence within them as I do. How precious they must be to God. How I love the soul, the divine presence within that person, and you bless that person. You begin to honor every life force in God's creation because there is only one. And there's a beautiful prayer that the masters have taught me. Universal Father, weave me in the language of love that brings me ever closer to loving my brothers and sisters in oneness. Grow me in my abilities to think, to feel, and to act with a love that binds all things together in oneness, in beauty and creation.
Can we talk a little bit about hypnosis and maybe touch on past life regressions?
Yes. So remember, I said to you that one of the problems we have when we meditate to hear God or to feel the presence is that there are blockages in the lines of communication. Now, just as how we have a physical body, we have energetic centers within the physical body called chakras. And there are 7 embodied chakras, so they're the crown, the third eye, which is linked to the pituitary gland, the throat, the heart, the solar plexus, which is one hand width above the navel, then 2 centimeters below is the sacral chakra, then we have the root, which is the base of the spine. They are the gateways to higher consciousness. And a lot of the attachments and blockages that we've developed over time has settled in one or more of these chakras, and a lot of them we brought from past lives, unresolved issues. And when we have blockages in what we call our energetic circulatory system, we cannot accrete the primal life force currents. Primal life force currents are light, let's say light from the source, or currents from the source. And therefore, things are not working properly. So we cannot access that higher consciousness, we cannot feel the presence continuously within us. So we have to get to the bottom of the problem. What is the root cause of whatever issue is? And perhaps it might be best if I just give you an example. So if a person in a past life, and it could work for this life too, let's say there's a lady in a past life, she had an incarnation as a female, and she was in a marriage that was very abusive. And she never felt love, and he would abuse her in different ways, her husband. And time again, she would swear to herself, I will never love men again, I will never get into relationships again, I will never get involved again because I cannot tolerate this. in that moment when she's abused, she goes into what is called an analogical state of mind, where time ceases to exist and a part of her soul becomes fractured or splintered out, and an identity or thought form is created. I will never love men again. And throughout the passage of time in that incarnation, as she personalizes it, because every time it's activated, she gives it more emotions every time he abuses, so she thinks about it. And it develops a magnetic field, because that identity or thought form lodges in the chakra, which is closely related to the analogical experience, which from all intents and purposes is the heart, because this is what we say love is, isn't it? And if she suffers because of it, suffering and pain lodges in the sacral chakra, which is the second chakra. So she leaves that life, and that is unresolved. So she decides, well, I'm going to have another incarnation on earth, and she comes back. But everything that is unresolved is recorded. And as this person grows up and she wants to have love, she keeps attracting men who doesn't love her or cannot commit to her. But she doesn't understand why. And she keeps saying, why am I stuck in this pattern? Why I keep attracting these men who will not commit to me or love me? Because she cannot remember what she created. I will never love men again. So she's attracting the vibration, the magnetic field is giving out an energetic vibration that is attracting people, places, times, and experiences that vibrates at that level. So you're attracting men who will not commit to you. So you're attracting the exactly you don't want.
Can you be reincarnated in another country? I mean,
yes.
This may be a silly question, but can you then?
Yes, and
Anywhere.
I have done sufficient Akashic record readings. Akashic records are the records which holds the soul's journey throughout their incarnation. So, I'll give you an example. Of course, I'm not calling names, but I'll give you an example of an Akashic records reading that I did for a person. And that person had issues with the family in this life and wanted to know, well, they didn't fit in this life, in this family. And in that lifetime, the person was Caucasian. So this person I'm speaking about is Jamaican, okay? But that person in that past life was a Caucasian plantation owner. Was in the times of just before or after, immediately after slavery. And it wasn't in this part of the world, it was in the Americas. And that person had those who, well, let's call them, they were slaves, but they were the cook and the butler,
All slaves.
precisely. They did all that work. And there was a separation because there was a racial divide. And the workers, let's call them the servants, they always felt separated and segregated from the person, no matter that it was regardless of the fact that they were looked after, they were paid, and they had a way of earning an income, etc. They felt separated, and they felt this man segregated himself and didn't integrate with them, because this was just after slavery, after that time. So what happens in this life? Well, the plantation owner, who was Caucasian, decided to be incarnated in a family, in an African Caribbean family, with those same two beings who were the servants in this lifetime, so that this person could understand how they felt as a race. You understand how they felt, and to learn unity. There was separation and segregation. It's unity. So that's just one example that the soul chooses its incarnation for the purposes of its own enlightenment. So what we call good and bad experiences are neither here nor there. They're simply experiences for the purposes of soul growth. And we have to appreciate different facets in life. We have to appreciate different experiences in life.
How has Jamaica been for your visit here, and have you, seen anything, been involved in anything that's, enlightened you in any way?
The experience in Jamaica has been a phenomenal experience because although I have interacted with individuals from Jamaica at different levels outside of Jamaica, it was my first experience in interacting with more people collectively, and in particular those who have taught whilst I've been here and those who have sent me messages through the talk I did through Smile Jamaica, the brief interview. I've realized how many people in Jamaica are awakening. There are so many people in this country who are awakening, who I feel they perhaps don't think there's a network to support them, so they remain quiet in their beliefs, but they are hungry. They're hungry for more. They want to be part of a growing consciousness that can assist others in their journey towards enlightenment.
It's funny you say that because I have a good friend of mine. She's a Caucasian woman from California. She lives here now, has bought property and settled in Jamaica. And one of the things she always tells me is that Jamaica is so full of, is spiritually very positive.
Yes.
We're so just full of a lot of spiritual energy that we're not using.
Precisely.
And we're not using it in the correct way too.
Precisely.
And she feels that. I mean, it's just something she's always pointed out to me, and when she says things and points out things, I say, you're right. And that sort of opened my eyes quite a bit.
And those who I taught are very evolved souls. They have come to anchor the